Thanks, Kelvin. Boy, it's great to see everybody here today. I'm Taylor, Jim, and Mark, and we're excited to spend a little bit of time with you over the next half hour or so. A little bit of context. We want this to kind of be a conversation. So if you've got questions, yell at me, particularly as we get into our dialogue between ourselves. A little bit of background on the University of Utah. Many people may not know the University of Utah is, I believe, the largest single-site employer in Utah. We are an $8.5 billion entity. We do things besides athletics. We actually are a healthcare system with 5 different hospitals and many, many clinics. We also are an innovation enterprise that has startups and wholly owned subsidiaries. And in fact, if you look at the healthcare enterprise of the $8.5 billion and you include the research and all of the innovation, that is about $6 billion of what I actually end up managing. Now, we believe that we can be better partners to all of you. And so we have spent the last, at least my first 3 years as president, doing a lot of reconfiguring, trying to figure out ways that we can actually partner much better. And that's actually the entire point of our presentation today. We're going to talk about blenders. When I was serving as dean of the business school, I realized very quickly that the school itself was not actually going to move forward without the collaboration with industry. And I started reaching out to very senior executives, some who lived in town, some who had retired, some who were active. And after about 6 months of trying to build partnerships, an executive out of Park City walked in with this blender. And he put it on my desk. And then he took that plug and he walked over to the socket, and this is backwards, but he had a European blender, and he just sat there for 5 minutes. And he said, "Taylor, I am a high-performance blender. I cannot figure out how to plug in to your university." Now, we are a large bureaucracy, and so what I hope comes out of here today is you all will have a set of ideas of how you, yourself, or your companies can actually plug into the ecosystem that we have. So I'm going to be asking questions about, okay, Mark, if I'm this, how can you help me? All right, Jim, I'm interested in this. What can the university do? And if I were to sum things up just a little bit, you need to think of us, right, as a collaborator with respect to any talent you might need, some funding you might need, and also a whole slew of capabilities. So let's get started down this path a little bit. Mark, you run the Center for Medical Innovation. We're going to make this rapid fire, by the way, and if I interrupt these guys because they're really smart, we got to keep this snappy. But anyway, Mark, you run the Center for Medical Innovation. What is it?
You know, the Center for Medical Innovation has been dramatically changed over the last 18 months. We provide services that build prototypes for faculty that are on campus, but we also provide prototyping services and FDA support service and regulatory filings for companies in the community. So we have a whole range of now services from industry that can come in and watch cases with physicians. We can build your prototypes, and we can do your regulatory filings.
Thank you. Unbelievable. We kept that on time. Jim, you're the Associate Vice President of Research and Commercialization. That's a big deal, I am sure. You're also, by the way, an owner, founder of Paterna. Tell us a little bit about your role and the scope of things that you cover.
Yeah, so my role in a word is to just reduce the activation energy necessary for faculty to innovate and form companies. And really, it's trying to build the entire ecosystem from the time a faculty has an idea, moving it forward within our tech transfer office, to spinning out companies.
All right, so Jim, a lot of these people might be interested in acquiring a technology that the faculty have. Do faculty really actually want to work with companies?
Yeah.
How do they do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Our faculty are really excited. I would say I've been at the U for 11 years, much more so even than previous iterations. They can reach out. We'll give our contact info at the end of the slide, but they can reach out to TLO, the Technology Licensing Office, and peruse a huge number of technologies, or they can reach out to either myself or Bruce Hunter, who runs that office directly, and we're happy to introduce them.
But Jim, I mean, every time I call the university, it's like it get passed off from one person to another, and it takes 75 days for even to get an appointment with somebody. Are you guys really that slow?
Well, we are trying not to be a business prevention unit and, move stuff along. And we've actually instituted a number of metrics. We get back to our faculty within 24 hours. When a faculty discloses a technology, we make a decision on it in 30 to 45 days. And if we don't, move on it, we release it to the faculty. And then we have that same response time for licensing. And our goal from the time a company reaches out to us and wants to license something is to have it done in 30 days. And we track all the metrics. Usually the delay there actually is, at this point, is either, the companies don't always respond to us as quickly. But yes.
So you're telling me you are a newer, kinder, faster technology commercialization office, led by Bruce Hunter. So thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that. You've led that transformation. All right. Mark, I'm a startup. I got a really good idea for a device. I think the technology's solid. I don't have capital. I don't have capabilities. Help me know what you would do for me if I came and sat down in your office for just a few minutes.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So when anybody contacts CMI, very much like Jim and the rest of the university, we've been trying to improve. Within 2 to 3 weeks, we'll set up a time. You come in and sit with us. We look at your idea and we say, well, here's a variety of ways we can help you bring your device to market. We can build prototypes here. We have FDA audited machines to support your submissions. We can do your regulatory submission. And then we have alliances that we work with for manufacturing. However, sometimes they'll say, well, I need additional research. And then that's when I talk to Jim and we connect them to different researchers on the campus.
Okay,
so we have a long list of tools we can provide to them.
So I need additional research. I flip over to Jim. Jim, what do you do then?
Well, I think I can connect people to a number of different things. We have amazing cores at the University of Utah, genetics, mass spec.
Does everybody know what a core is? Because I didn't. I come from business.
I can explain. Essentially, they're built by the university to serve specific functions, and they have a huge amount of expertise in areas like technical areas. Like there's a core that can do genetic sequencing, different ones that can do mass spec. There's over 25 of them, and companies can use them. Like my startup, for example, does all our sequencing at the university and runs our sequencing through the Center for High Performance Computing, and they actually are great because they can solve problems. They're used to solving problems for our own researchers, but they can solve problems for startups.
Wait, you're telling me if I don't have a capability in a certain area, like mass spectrometry, whatever that word was, I can come up, and you guys will actually let me walk into your facility, you'll find some people and you'll help me?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We actually, out at the University of Utah booth, we have a whole pamphlet on all the different cores with specific contact information, and they're fully open for business.
All right, now I know, let's shift a little bit. Let's shift a little bit to funding. Universities aren't usually seen as sources of funding, but Mark, I know you sit on some fund boards. Can you guys, maybe I'll start with Mark, Jim can finish it up. Tell me, what does the funding ecosystem look like at the University of Utah?
We've streamlined everything by working with TLO and how we look at technologies coming out of research or technologies that want to partner with the university. So we have the Ascender grant. That's where you start, and it can be from as low as $10,000 to $100,000. And what we want to do is de-risk your idea so that you can have a greater likelihood of commercialization. But you progress and you continue to de-risk and your idea begins to take root. Then we have the Founders Fund, and we can go up to $250,000. But then you can step off campus as an S-Corp or LLC, and you can go to the Utah Innovation Fund. Our legislators have set aside $30 million to invest in startups that come off any of our campuses or organizations that worked with our universities across the entire state. And they can go up to $250,000 to $350,000 and do repeat investments. But then it gets even better than that. With your leadership and Jim's hard work, we now have the Epic Venture Fund. So now we can go well over $1 million. So we can take you from $10,000 to $1 million plus as your idea begins to take root and you de-risk the project.
Yeah, and to add to that, so we have University of Utah Ventures by Epic, which is a $200 million fund and can do investments from 400 up to 3 million. And that's really been super helpful for our faculty to have that early engagement. I mean, our goal really is to get really promising technology out of the university and move it forward.
So do I actually have to be a faculty member or a student to access these funds, or does it differ by fund?
It differs a little bit by fund. So the Ascender Fund is about $1.5 million a year, and that you do have to be a faculty member who's disclosed to technology to the university, but a company hasn't licensed it. The next step, that Founders Fund, which is $500 to $700 a year, sort of is set up so that can help you transition a company out. Those are kind of designed for like internally facing. And then we have the externally facing component, which, Utah Innovation Fund that we work with all the time, and then University of Utah Ventures. But you do not, for our own venture fund, you do not have to be a faculty or a student.
Yeah. A little commentary from my side. One of the reasons I thought it was really strategic that we be closely tied to a venture fund was that the university itself, right, is this kind of thriving ecosystem of healthcare. And there are technologies that we actually want to be able to invest in and actually become first customers, right? And actually first areas of test. We also have the ability to do clinical trials and all sorts of things. And so when we find interesting technologies that have complementary uses to what we need to do in our healthcare system and in our research enterprise, we're going to want to take a look at those and actually bring them in-house. So speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about, we've got this fund. I'm going to use funding as the structure, but that may be a reason someone might want to come and say, do we actually spend technologies in to the university, Jim? How does that work? Mark, how do you see that working in both of your areas?
Yeah, you absolutely can. We have a number of ways to do it. You can rent space. We have hundreds of thousands, literally, of square feet of space that can partner with us to build that space out. And then we also have IP-free zones. So essentially, you can come in and rent space and work with any faculty in your space with the company's resources, and the university doesn't make any claims on that IP.
Yeah, at the Center for Medical Innovation, we can now in-license technologies where maybe our engineers and my organization wants to take an idea that someone's brought to us. We in-license that, we work on that, and we create the spin-out that we take out through TD.
Yeah, and we can also do sponsored research where a company comes and wants to work with faculty in their lab at the university, and we have an agreement to do that, and we do millions of dollars of that worth a year.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to let all of you know today is I wanted you to understand our incentives as a university. I've said we want to actually be a top 10 public university with unsurpassed societal impact. There are a set of metrics, right, that will indicate we're there. There's a lot more beyond the metrics. But a lot of those actually have to do with research, right? Particularly sponsored research that comes from industry. And so we actually, in our striving to become one of the best universities in the country, we actually do want research relationships with all of you if you would like it. And so you can engage via the cores, you can engage via sponsored research, you can engage via these IP-free zones. There are a lot of ways that you can do that. In fact, we feel like most of our research growth needs to come in the next few years from partnering with industry. But, right, you got to know how to interface. And are we good at all types of research? Where would you think our sweet spot is here, Jim?
Well,
it's not that you come in and say, hey, do this for me, but where do you think we're good?
Yeah, as much as I love to say we're good at everything, there are areas where we are better at. We own the third or fourth biggest reference lab in the United States, ARUP. They do $1 billion a year in business, and they're sort of really known for building high-end tests. Our pathology department is 135 faculty members. It should be about 20. That lab processes 100,000 samples a day. So that has incredible ability to work with industry. And the other thing we have is we have a data coordinating center, which think of it as like an academic CRO or clinical research organization. They can run big clinical trials. They're the third or fourth biggest in the United States. They have 135 people. The guy who runs it, Jamie Dwyer, has raised hundreds of millions of dollars for his own company. And when companies come to work with us, like pharma comes to work with us to run clinical trials, the big criticism we get is there is no way you can do this for the price that you're saying you can do this for, because he charges probably a third of what some of these CROs do. We also, if you're interested in clinical trials, about 92, and I'm a urologist, so I'm a surgeon, so I can tell you from my own patients too, about 92% of the patients we approach for research agree to participate, which is unheard of. Most places it's more like 1 in 3.
Yeah.
Mark, but something to add to that's really important. Medical innovation, regardless of where it comes from, is always better with collaboration. So when you have researchers, you have clinicians, you have ideas that come off campus or on campus, whenever you get this collaboration, it always leads to a better medical device technology.
But Mark, you've been on the other side of this. This is why we hired Mark, right? He comes with 30 plus years of device innovation. And as you're thinking about trying to build research partnerships with universities, how do you assess it from your side? Where's the sweet spot? Jim's given us his opinion on that, but where's the sweet spot in your estimation?
Yeah, I think in the past, universities, even the University of Utah, are seen as, hey, there are these researchers up on the hill, there's a lot of bureaucracy, I don't even know how to approach them. What we're trying to do is make that change to say, no, for industry especially, there's things they can and cannot do, and they get stuck all the time. And they're looking for ways to solve problems that they can bring to a commercial avenue to sell to their customers. And so something like the university and these cores, the CMI, our researchers, again, when you collaborate with industry, things always get better because they come in with a very specific challenge that they've already identified for patient care. So when we collaborate together with them, a better outcome always happens.
And I would add to that, I've been at a number of universities over the years, and this is far and away the most collaborative place I've ever been. The default answer with faculty working together is yes. One of my favorite quotes is from the chair of mechanical engineering, a guy Bruce Gale, is like, we really like working with surgeons because they bring us problems. And if we're left to our own devices, we solve things that sometimes aren't actually problems. But people are very collaborative, very willing to work together, and we're trying to move things at the pace that industry moves at, because a startup will have no money, and then they'll raise a bunch of money, and they need to spend that money, and it's like go time.
Right.
So Jim himself has raised $10 million around his startup Paterna. And if you look at the talent in his company, they by and large are PhD students from the University of Utah. So one of the things that we can actually do, right, is provide a really high level of sophistication around talent. And I want both of these individuals to tell some stories around how talent gets developed at the University of Utah and then how you get to it. So Mark, when we get to you, I want you to talk about the Bench to Bedside program and even paint a little vision of where you're going with CMI, and take a few minutes to do this. So why don't we start with you, Mark, and then from an entrepreneur perspective, how you acquired all that talent that you needed, Jim.
Yeah, thank you. For one of the most exciting programs we have on campus is our student-led Bench to Bedside program. So these students come from every elements of our campus. They come from all the schools of engineering, business, law, the medical school, and they come up with their own medical device ideas. Now, what's exciting for these students is they're not employees of the state, they're not employees of the University of Utah. They keep all of their IP. So, and we actually, through my program, actually filed their provisional patents for them. The whole goal is to develop talent. But what's really special about these bench-to-bedside teams, if you have a team of all engineers, they miss things. If you have a team of all MBAs, they miss things. When they do their best is when they collaborate. When a team has some business students, some medical students, some engineers of different specialties, even a law student, they come up with some exceptional devices. And at the end of the year, we have a huge contest in April. We traditionally have 30 to 40 different teams. We'll have 140 to 150 students. We actually invite all the other campuses in our state to participate. But these are the students that are going to go on and change the world for medicine. And so it gives them a way to have real-world experience in listening to a doctor, watching procedures, designing out a product, figuring out what's the regulatory path, what's the billing codes. And some of these have gone on to be really cool technologies that have become successful. One of our greatest challenges is some of these teams graduate. they get married, they go to grad school, they start their careers. So we've worked on a way for those students to then bring it back to the next team the following year so they can pick up the idea and keep it going. So that's one of our programs. But if I could take one more minute and talk a little bit about the new facility we're building on campus.
Please do.
Called the James LaVoy Sorensen Center for Medical Innovation. Now, many of you probably know who James LaVoy Sorensen is. He was a prolific medical device innovator with over 70 patents and devices with products that are still used today. So the Sorensen family gave us a large founding grant to start this facility. So let me tell you about what this facility can do. This facility sits right in the middle of all 5 surgical facilities. So if you're familiar with Capecchi, right, there's primary children's, and then you're heading south. You then hit the Moran Eye Center, and then there was a parking lot, probably the last parking lot up there.
Parking lot on campus.
We
It's
took
causing
that
a lot of
parking lot
problems.
to make parking even more challenging, and we're building a 58,000 square foot facility dedicated to the development of life science technologies for both on and off campus. So imagine this. On the first floor, you have 4 different levels of innovation labs, 3D printing centers. Even our lobby is open to everyone to come in and start inventing something. I think lobbies are a waste of money, cost a lot of money, and nobody uses them. So we put all of our level 1 prototyping stations in our lobbies. So any clinician, any faculty, any student, or any entrepreneur in the state can come in and start working on their device. The second floor is dedicated to commercialization. We have an event center. We even have a semi-clean manufacturing room. We have a clean room, ISO 8, which does about 95% of the devices that go into the human body. And we have 12 incubators. So if we have a great bench-to-bedside team, we have technologies coming from our clinicians or companies off campus that need to incubate and use all those facilities to further their startup. But then it gets really cool. On the top floor, we have a 10-table fresh tissue operating room. It's impossible to get any time in any of our operating rooms in the state. In the olden days, we'd kind of come in between 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Well, that's even filled now. The University of Utah runs 24/7. But now I can order you any fresh tissue body part that you want. And think if you're working on prostates. You can have a prostate on table 1 with the current tools. But on tables 2, 3, and 4, you could have prostates with invented tools. And you can go step by step through the entire procedure as you're innovating your product. What does that mean? It accelerates development. And one last comment. Look, I've been around in 70 different countries looking at labs and startup facilities around the world in my last 30 years as president of Stryker Neurovascular. There's no reason why we can't compete with Stanford. There's no reason why we can't beat the boys in Boston, the Mayo Clinic people, or the folks down in Houston. No reason at all. But this facility is going to become the nidus that starts this, so that we have a place where all innovators across the state, across the campus, can come here to collaborate to develop the next generation of technologies for medical care.
So, Mark, just so you know, lobbies were actually built for university presidents because they always know why you're coming, and they like you to be there for a long time before you ask them for money. So I don't know, I'm not going to know what to do in your facility, but it's exciting. It's really, really, really exciting. All right, Jim, back to the talent question. By the way, you can see this facility that it's $75 million. What's the price tag now?
$50 million.
$50 million.
We've raised 37 if any others want to do it.
Okay, thanks for reducing the price. In my head, I had another $50 million to go, but I appreciate that. Anyway, you can see, though, part of what we're trying to do with our talent development is actually put them in the middle of the actual work. And that facility will play a large, large part of it. And by the way, it's not just our scientists and our doctors, right? We want our business development folks and our product development folks in the middle of that as well. Now, Jim, you've been an entrepreneur. You've got your company. Tell us your story of how you kind of got talent and how you found talent at the University of Utah.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit about my background. So I'm a reproductive urologist. So I do surgery to try to help people have kids. When I came to Utah, it was a little surprising because I came from Chicago and my average patient went from 39 to 27. But it's a devastating problem, and it's obviously...
What's the average age here?
27.
Oh, 27.
Of my
Okay,
patient
all right.
that I
Okay,
see.
got it, all right.
And it's a devastating problem. It's really difficult. We do surgeries to try to find sperm, and about 50% of the time we don't find it, which means at least twice a month I have to tell someone they're never going to have their own biologic children, which is absolutely devastating. I tell my patients there is nothing that makes me feel like more of a failure as a human being than having this conversation. I came to Utah in 2013 and I was like, I want to cure male infertility. I walked into a guy, Brad Cairns, who's a Howard Hughes medical investigator, tens of millions of dollars in funding. He's now the chief academic officer of the Cancer Center. And I said, Brad, I want to cure male infertility. And Brad said, first of all, who are you? Why are you in my office? And, before we even think about curing it, we got to understand normal. So we built, a tissue bank over a decade, published a number of, stem cell papers, and really hired people into a research team. And then maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I came to Brad and I said, well, Brad, we need a company. We need to move this forward. And Brad's first thing was, the answer you sometimes get in academics is like, why would I want to do this? And I said, well, we're not going to be able to impact patients on the scale of research that we're doing. We can spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars with these grants. This is going to be tens of millions. So we had a student, Shi Chen, who was a graduate student and then a postdoc with us, who we raised money into this company, raised about $4 million initially, and she was the first employee. She's originally from China and was on a visa through the university and then moved to an H-1B, but she was able to still do some research at the university while working, in the company, which requires a lot of paperwork and conflict of interest management and other things like that, but it's very doable. She came to work for the company and then now is applying for her green card, 4 years later. And really is an example of, I think, what we can do. But because she knew all the resources of the university, we could seamlessly plug in, to all the different cores that we were talking about. But we really want to have that talent here. And because for a while she had a foot in both worlds, she was able to, when I sat our team down and said, this is different than NIH-funded discovery science. This is, you guys either figure this out or we're kind of done because we're solving specific problems. But the ability to walk people through that process, I think, is critical.
Well, and he's being humble. This database has led to 3, 4, 5 now startups that have coming out. So it's a great example on our campus where you have researchers and medical facility leaders gathering data that data informs what do we do to help treat these patients. Mm-hmm. And 50% of all infertility is males, but quite often they focus just on the females because they have tests they can do. But now because of all this work that Jim has led to all sorts of technologies that are coming off the campus that can help men in their role in this.
So Jim, your story is, look, I had a student in a lab. They were already trained. It was a very natural evolution. Would that same thing happen? Well, give me the different ways that would happen if somebody came from the outside. Would that be a sponsored research path? Would it be, what would it look like?
Yeah, we do it all the time. I mean, it can be sponsored research where, like, the PI who runs the lab gets a contract from, let's say it's our Aaron Quinlan, who's the chair of genetics, brilliant computational geneticist, biotech company that's trying to develop a new technique to do some new computational genetics drug discovery tool would come to him and say, okay, we're going to fund, $1 million worth of research in your lab. We're going to fund this person, and this person's time. And then oftentimes when those people finish, a lot of them go to work for the company for 5 times as much as they could make in academics.
And I think 3 of these companies have already come to the Utah Innovation Fund. Uh-huh. So they've made really good progress. And then I think we're working on one at CMI right now as well that came off this same.
And the Utah Innovation Fund, just for everybody, is run by Jefferson Moss. Is that the one?
Jefferson
Moss.
Moss.
I got it right? Yeah.
Yeah, and Gabby. And it's for any technology, outside of medicine as well, but any technology that comes off any of our campuses. And they can apply for these funds, and there's a process how they vet it out, and then it's voted on, and the checks are issued.
Just to finish up with the talent thing, if Vic Hockett is here with Talent Ready Utah, and also Kelvin, they did some miraculous and incredible work working with the legislature to actually start funding life sciences technology or talent development at our universities. And you will actually see, some programs roll out here relatively soon to develop talent from whether it be technicians at the low end to high-end PhDs at all of the institutions around the state. It's actually an example of how the system of higher education. When we actually act as a system, we're actually able to provide kind of end-to-end talent development for all of you. Another way, by the way, that you can come and kind of can engage with us. I want to stop for a second and see if there are any questions that any of you might have about what's going on at the University of Utah. I do have a litany of questions I can continue to pepper these two incredible gentlemen with, but are there any questions that might come from the audience? So the question is, do we take equity in the first fund? So
I can answer that. So our Ascender fund, we do not. It's essentially a grant, but that has to be funding research where a faculty has disclosed something, but it has not been licensed by a company yet. So that's to increase the value of that technology. When we move out to the Founders Fund, we do take equity when we do that, when we're helping a faculty form a company through a safe note.
My philosophy is, and the reason we're investing in some of these funds, is I actually want to be able to put capital in rather than negotiate it up front, right? I would rather get an option for ourselves so that we're actually not diluting cap table or taking unnecessary economics at the early stage, and we'd like to invest with you as we see ideas evolve. Please.
Hi, Taylor and Mark and Jim. It's Miles Greenberg here. As you guys probably know, my background is as an entrepreneur and in academic medicine before that. My last company, one of the biggest challenges we had here actually was less on the resource side and more on the human resource side in terms of finding the right senior executives in multiple different areas to run our business. So I really was interested in what you were saying about the types of resources you can bring to bear, but what is the university doing or thinking about doing in terms of fostering the type of senior executive talent that we really need for a robust ecosystem here?
That's a great question. We actually had the Column Group, which they manage $4 billion, and therapeutics venture fund out here, and we're talking to them, and Taylor, to his credit, actually said, how can we work with you? What do we need to do? And they said, well, you guys have all the pieces here, but you need to get enough of a flywheel where you can recruit top-level C-suite talent here, where if they come into company A and it fails, they can jump to company B and they don't have to move somewhere else. Because it's not hard to get people to move here. So that's one of the reasons we have a venture fund now, is we actually have the ability to bring talent here, tap that network. But that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to build, companies out of the U that can get to Series A and attract that kind of talent. It's a non-trivial problem, and I think it's not something that's going to be solved in months.
I saw an email kind of go across my desk the other day referring to entrepreneurs and residents. What's that? What was that about? I got to be honest, I deleted it. I saw it was from Jim, and I was like,
my wife does the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have an entrepreneurial network, and there's actually another flyer about it at our booth. But effectively, people can come, work with us, help faculty, move things forward, look at a number of interesting technologies, and I think, it's invaluable to faculty to have that perspective. To give you an example of that, there's a company that just spun out of the U called Sathera. It's a chemistry professor, and they have a new way to make cyclic peptides and conformationally lock them. And that technology had been around for 3 to 4 years. They just raised $2 million, and that $2 million happened 6 months after an introduction, do you know what I mean, to the right executive talent pool, and now their postdoc is the CEO of the company. And actually, statistically, companies led by postdocs or graduate students are more likely to be successful than companies led by faculty.
Yeah, and I would add, it's not a light switch, Miles, but it is a problem for us. We have 1,600 life science companies in the state. They've grown rapidly, and everybody needs common talent for leadership. But as you look at Weber State now has a regulatory degree, University of Utah has a regulatory certificate moving towards a master's degree. The halo effect of the industry, when I looked at my factory and my facility here, we had 37 different degrees that worked in my facility. But over time, whether it be Merit Medical or Stryker, from the big guys to the little guys, that talent starts developing and starts spinning out. But it takes time, but these halo forms of talent will start to circle the industry here, and then we should have more talent in the future. But it's going to take time.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Miles.
My name is Dave Nilsson. I work for Evoke Nano, and I can say that we have leveraged the assets of the University of Utah heavily, the Nano Fab. I can't speak enough about that program, and Dr. Van Devner and his support there, and Dr. Gandahari that we've used for our nanotechnology. So I'm a huge fan. When I was an undergrad, we had really great access to the animal testing facilities. And I was at Huntsman Cancer Institute, and then I was in medicinal chemistry with Glenn Prestowich. But I'm curious, what are the resources in animal testing that the university offers to industry outside of professors and staff and such that's within the university?
Do you want to start? Or
Yeah, why don't you start? I'll jump.
Yeah, we have quite a bit. I mean, we have a whole mouse core that can generate, transgenic mice, house them, do the work, people who can even do the surgery. We have multiple veterinarians who house all of those animals, and it's pretty plug and play. As somebody who does research with mice but never really wants to see a mouse, it's extremely effective, at that. And they really do a great job managing it. There's a really kind of an amazing zebrafish facility, all the way through larger animals. Like one of our faculty, Austin Johnson, has a company where they're making new catheters for bleeding, and they do, multiple pig surgeries a week. But there's all kinds of resources there that can be plugged into essentially on a fee-for-service basis. And to be very transparent here, if you come and work with our mouse core, we're not going to own any of that IP. Do you know what I mean? That's all your IP. We are a service provider, but the other thing that we offer that a lot of places don't is a huge amount of expertise about thinking really deeply about specific problems, because these animal facilities are used to investigators coming to them with crazy ideas and trying to solve problems.
Yeah, and to add on that, when you meet these folks, you start working with them, you meet and you start networking into that group of researchers and pre-clin research, you learn all sorts of things. In the industry, quite often, we think we have a view of how to do our pre-clin testing, and quite often we're wrong. So when you start working with these different animal facilities, you learn a lot. There's also private facilities now up in Logan. Logan's now opening their vet school. So I think over time, the whole infrastructure for pre-clin work is going to improve.
And we have an orthopedic innovation center spun out of our ortho department that has a whole 8,000 square foot CNC machining facility on campus at the university, where we're making hardware that's going into patients for clinical trials. Like they can take something all the way and have all the way through a 510K.
Yeah. We've got 6 minutes left. I want you to tell me what you're most excited about and how you want to engage with people, and then I'll take the last two. So let's split it up between the three of us. How's that?
I'll go fast. The Center for Medical Innovation is open for business with on-campus or off-campus activities. The new facility will change everything. But I want everyone to realize this is your place to interact, network, come do projects here, incubate here, use our commercial center, use our biotissue operating room. It's not sacred. It's there to be worn out, trying to figure out how we can improve healthcare for our state.
Yeah, and I would just say I really like putting things and people together. And the thing I am the most excited about is seeing some of these things that we've put together actually come to fruition. We have weekly meetings at the university, and we're looking at different technologies coming at the university. And just this week,
My favorite meeting.
was sort of the first time was like, wow, all three of these are like venture backable,
Right.
Which they're not always that way. But that's what I'm really excited about. And I want us to get to the point where we've had a couple, but we're not fully there yet, where faculty are calling us saying, I want to come to the University of Utah because I've heard it's an awesome place to innovate.
Right.
So I hope you can see that whether it's talent, funding, or capabilities, right, we are open for business and certainly trying to be a much more friendly and open partner to those of you who want to use this. We feel like there's some massive advantages from a more collaborative approach rather than a more insular approach. From my perspective as university president, I am making big investments in these types of, whether it be core facilities. They will not pay off for me unless you all come and use them. with us and that we actually collaborate together. We announced last year about this time a $100 million investment in developing artificial intelligence capabilities. A large piece of that $100 million will actually be pointed at our life sciences and the many, many databases that we have that are unique, and the capabilities that we actually have in life sciences. And then as a kind of a final note, one of the things we're doing is viewing the university as actually getting off of our campus as well. And I'll use an example of our new facility that will be opening up in Vineyard around our Huntsman Cancer Institute expansion. We actually have some options on land down there. And what we would like to be able to do is take 2 or 3 research programs to that area. We actually think they will be complementary research programs. They have to do with artificial intelligence in cancer and in healthcare in general, and they also have to do with the distance delivery of medicine, or however you want, whatever term you want to use there. Our Cancer Center in particular, why those? Our Cancer Center in particular has access to the Utah Population Database, which is one of the most stunning databases that combines genetics and genealogies and healthcare records together, right? And the ability to turn AI tools onto that is absolutely stunning. But our Cancer Center also covers the largest geographic area in the United States in terms of trying to deliver care. And one of the most acute challenges we have is trying to push care out into local communities, particularly rural communities. And so we're hoping, right, that whatever it becomes, call it a research park, begins to attract many startups and many established companies that want to do work for us. So for my level, what I'm trying to do is invest in capabilities that allow the university to participate directly in the economic development of particular industries, and life sciences is core and priority for us in terms of that investment. We are always open to feedback. As I've gone through this path over the first kind of 3 years of my presidency, I've been listening. I think we've done a good piece of analysis on where we've been weak, and I've been extremely proud of the team that we have and the adjustments that they have been making to make this more open. Many of them are on the front row here today. Sorry you had to listen to all of us, but you are my heroes, and I just appreciate you every single day because you come in looking and trying to make the University of Utah better. I appreciate you. So with that, give us your final 5 or 6 words. Mark.
We're in this for the short and the long game. This will change the entire economy of our state and improve healthcare.
I would absolutely agree with that. And the final thing I would say is if you feel like something is not working, please reach out to us, because if we don't know where the pain points are, we can't fix them. I'm a surgeon. I'm used to like a lot of negative feedback, so it's not a problem for me.
And I'm the industry guy that hates bureaucracy. So between us, we figure.
Yeah.
And I will end this story. People always ask me, what will your legacy be as a president? And I would just say, I hope I've broken the bureaucracy of the University of Utah. And you see us as a porous membrane that actually interacts with our community in positive ways to deliver unsurpassed societal impact. So thank you very much for listening to us today, and go Utes.